Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you might be today. Thanks so much for joining us for another pre-arrival webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about housing options for our graduate students, and we have a number of folks here to speak to different pieces of that. So we're really excited to have so many amazing folks gathered in one place. But first off, the International Students and Programs Office, as well as our partners, would like to congratulate you on your acceptance to UC San Diego. We are here to assist you throughout your stay in the US, as well as provide services that enhance the quality of your experience at UC San Diego and contribute to your academic and personal success. And with that, my name is Grace Fuller, and I serve as the Manager of International Student Experience and Engagement at the International Students and Programs Office, commonly referred to as ISPO. And I'm actually going to hand it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves, starting with Shauna.
Thank you, Grace. Hello, everyone. Congratulations on your admission to UC San Diego. I work in the Division of Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs. This is the office formerly known as a graduate division. And I'll be talking today about some reminders from graduate admissions. And I also coordinate activities for new students in the fall once you arrive on campus and join our community. And with that, I will pass it off to my colleague, Hannah.
Hi everyone, and again, congratulations on your admission to UC San Diego. My name is Hannah Haddad. I work alongside Shauna in the Division of Graduate Education and Postdoc Affairs. Specifically, I work in student affairs. I'm a financial specialist, but I do a lot of work with our housing partners as well as our partners over in basic needs. Pass it off to Daniela.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniela, and I'm the General Manager for Grad and Family Housing for housing allocations, responsible for making the housing offers, and also the GM for one of our communities, Nuevo East. So I'm going to pass to my colleague, Myra.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Myra, and I work for Housing Allocations Office. And what I do, I manage the waitlist. So if you have any questions about the waitlist, I'm the right person to contact. And I'm going to pass it on to Camille.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Camille Kenga. Pronouns she, her, hers, and I serve as the Basic Needs Housing Educations Coordinator over at the Basic Needs Hub. And I will pass it on to my colleague, Marissa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marisa Islas. I'm the Basic Needs Housing and Education Assistant at the Hub, also pronouns she, hers. Pass it on to Russell.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Russell. I'm an international student alum of UCSD, and I'm the current co-founder and COO of HUGS, which is Housing for Undergrad and Graduate Students. So I specialize in international student housing, and I'll speak more about that in the presentation. So I'll just like to pass it on to Fran Greenstein.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fran Greenstein, and I'm representing CORT Furniture Rental. We provide furniture when you move off campus, as well as unfurnished when you live on campus. Look forward to speaking with you.
All right, so as you can see, we have so many folks gathered here today to speak about all the different pieces of your housing journey. So we know that this is a topic of a lot of anxiety at times, but also a lot of excitement as you begin your journey. So we're hoping that this can start to assuage some of the concerns you may have and really start to just bring together that excitement as you begin your journey to UC San Diego. Okay, a little bit about how we'll spend our time together today. So I'll do a brief overview of our office, ISPO. Shauna will have some reminders for you. We'll hand it over to our folks in graduate and family housing to talk about some on-campus housing options. Then we'll pass it over to our partners to talk about some off-campus housing options and resources. We'll have some approaching deadlines and reminders, and then we have dedicated a section at the end of today's webinar to do an open question and answer. But before we begin, you'll notice that you are in listen only mode, which means you can hear us, but we unfortunately cannot hear you. So the primary way that we'll be communicating with you today is through the Q&A feature. So this is where you can submit all of your questions. You'll notice that the chat has been disabled. So again, that Q&A feature will be the primary way where you can communicate with us. Feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation. I see that we have 2 already. I love it. But again, we'll dedicate time at the end to do that open question and answer. And then finally, we are recording. So we have 2 of our previous webinars already posted at iwebinars.ucsd.edu. So if you go to iWebinars and you click on webinars for newly admitted students, this is where you'll be able to see any previous webinar recordings, as well as sign up for future webinars. All right, so again, that's what that Q&A feature is going to look like. So that's where you'll be able to submit those questions, and we'll be dedicated time at the end to answer those questions, but feel free to submit them throughout today's presentation. Okay, because we have so much good information today, I'm going to kind of breeze through the slides because we've had this at some of our other webinars. So if you're curious about it, feel free to access those recordings. But the International Students and Programs Office is your one-stop shop for all services and programs for international students at UC San Diego. We provide immigration advising as well as non-immigration advising topics that might help you understand how to best navigate your program and succeed here. We hope you'll come visit us because we have 21 friendly faces ready to help answer your questions. All right, so in addition to advising and immigration and issuing your immigration documents, such as your Form I-20 or DS 2019, we also offer a number of events and workshops known as programs to help support the successful transition of our students to campus and student life. So we hope that by doing this, we'll enrich the academic, research, and intercultural experiences of all students here at UC San Diego. A little bit about who our students are. So UCSD is so fortunate. We are actually ranked top 10 in terms of hosting international student populations. So we are so excited to have nearly 9,000 international students currently enrolled at UC San Diego. In addition, we have over 2,000 students on post-graduation employment status, known as optional practical training, OPT, or academic training, AT. Each one of you makes a significant contribution to UC San Diego's research and educational endeavors, and ISPO is here to help support this growing population through our services, including presentations like today. So let's get started. If you are not familiar, something you definitely want to check out is inewstudent.ucsd.edu. So this is our webpage that we've created specifically for new and incoming students. We've put together a checklist of essentially what you need to do. So depending on if you are a graduate student, you would click on that, and it will take you step by step. So from requesting your immigration documents to preparing for arrival to what to do upon arrival, we really try to map it out to make it as clear as possible as you begin your journey at UC San Diego. And with that, I'll hand it over to my colleagues to talk about some graduate reminders.
Thank you so much, Grace. Hello, everyone. I have just a few reminders here from our graduate admissions staff, and I will also be putting in the chat a link to our grad admissions email address in the event that you have questions about what I talk about today. So first of all, your application portal includes a lot of helpful information for newly admitted graduate students. And you can view the portal by visiting gradapply.ucsd.edu. And in a moment, I'm actually going to share a screenshot of the page to point out a couple of items on there. I'm also going to put a link in the chat to the GradApply or the application portal, I should say. Now, it's important to remember that most students are admitted provisionally, and this means that you still have to submit admissions documents to our office. You can find a list of these documents in your portal under a section that I'll show you in a moment that's pending admissions documents. I do just want to stress that a provisional admission is actually very common. It's the most common status when students are admitted. And what that means is it should not prevent you from getting a visa or hinder your ability to get immigration documents. So I just want to put that out there as something important to remember. And again, our staff is available via email at gradadmissions@ucsd.edu, and they can help you with any other questions regarding admissions. So this is the screenshot that I was talking about. This is what you will see when you visit your application portal. You can see in the upper left is where you will be able to find your UCSD PID, which is basically your student ID. That's information you will need to have as you are preparing to come to campus. Below that is the status update if there's any changes to your application or your status, such as finalizing your admission, moving from provisional status to final admission status. Below that is a list of forms that might be due for you in particular. And then below that is the pending admission document section that I referenced earlier. So this is where you'll be able to find all that info. And then the last thing I want to point out is on the bottom right, you will find links to our admitted students' web pages. And this, I'm also going to put a link in the chat. This has a lot of to-do items for new graduate students. So I just encourage you to check that out early and make sure that you know what all the deadlines are and all of those tasks. And with that, I'll turn it back over to our colleagues in housing.
All right. So hello again, everyone. So Myra and I are here to talk about our communities and grad and family housing. And we have 7 communities. Some of you may be familiar with some of the communities, some of you are not. So I'm just going to give like a brief overview. And please, by all means, go to our website. You can get all the details about every single community. We would need all day here for me to describe all 7. But just to give you a general idea, we have La Jolla del Sol, which is our community specially designed to house faculty and staff. And about, I would say 2-3 years ago, we opened for grad couples and families. So if they're families moving with children or like couples in what we call committed relationship, and there's some documents that you have to present to prove that, you can qualify to La Jolla del Sol. So we also have coast apartments. We have studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. This is our oldest community. And it's just a very small community, you know, the students really like because it's kind of off campus, it's more isolated. Some apartments are privileged enough to have ocean view, but it's our longest wait list. So for you who are just coming now to UCSD, I highly suggest not to select coast as one of your housing options because the chances are you're not going to be able to be housed there timely. But just so you know, and also, you know, in the future, if that's something that you have in mind, you can always move in and reapply for housing to relocate within our communities on a later date when the wait list is not as extensive as it is, you know, historically for the fall quarter. So those are unfurnished apartments, studios, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedrooms, and 1 bath. We have 1 Miramar Street, Mesa Apartments. Those are also like our oldest communities. 1 Miramar, not that old. It's from 2007. That's when I started here. And those are all unfurnished. 1 Miramar, all apartments are 2 bedroom, 1 bath. And then Mesa, they're also unfurnished, 2 bed, 1 bath. And we also have a few units that are 3 bedrooms. And most likely those units are going to be given to families with 3 or more children. And then we come to our newest communities. We have Mesa Nueva, Nuevo West, and Nuevo East. Nuevo East is the one that I also manage, and it's our newest community we just recently opened. We offer 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 and 4. And then Nuevo West, we also have the option of a 6 bedroom. And I know people, the first reaction is like, oh no, 6 bedroom, it's too many roommates, it's how we're gonna fit everyone. I'll show you the layout for the room in the next slides, and I can guarantee that you fall in love with the 6-bedroom. So do not disregard the 6-bedroom. It's a very nice layout. It's a 2-story apartment. It's over 2,000 square feet. You know, the kitchen is big enough to have everyone. Every individual gonna have their own sink in the bathroom. You have lots of privacy. So do not disregard the 6-bedroom. This is my heads up for you. Next. So here's just a quick again overview of the square footage. The studios at Mesa Nueva, of course, they are not large. They're 275 square foot, but they're furnished and everything fits in place. So this is another thing people sometimes ask: if I'm moving into a studio, can I bring my own furniture? The answer is no. So if you want to have your own furniture, do not just disregard the studio, because you're not going to be able. We don't have the means to storage any of the furniture that we have currently in the studios, and nothing else is going to fit. Everything is made, to be the way it is. Another advantage about our communities, we have all the utilities included. Most of the communities, again, you're going to have to go one by one to check the details, but most of them you have a water, electricity, cable, internet, and the parking at the premises. Everything is included in the rent. Okay, next. Again, just the layouts, the floor plans for the 2 bedrooms and the 3-bedroom. For this presentation, my main focus is like our new communities, because those are the ones that you probably gonna be able to get an offer for the fall quarter. Next. The 4-bedroom, you can see it's like 1,300 square feet. It's a large apartment. Each bedroom is individual. So this is another question that people ask, because we recently start offering double occupancy. They ask, how can I make sure I'm not going to have someone else in my bedroom? All bedrooms are by default single bedrooms. So if you want to have a roommate in your bedroom, you wanted the double occupancy, you're going to have to request that. So if you do not request, rest assured that you're going to get a bedroom for yourself. Next, please. Okay, this is the 6-bedroom. So like I told you before, you have this huge space. It's over 2,000 square foot. And you see it's a 2-story. So you have 2 bedrooms downstairs and the 4 bedrooms upstairs. Most of the apartments have actually individual entrances. So if you are on the 2nd floor, you might access your apartment directly from the 2nd floor, or you can get it from the 1st floor. Next. Nuevo East is also, again, just the layouts. We have a 1-bedroom apartment in Nuevo East, which is something that, people usually want. It's a 1-bedroom. So that's another thing to keep in mind. The 1-bedroom in the studios are the longest wait lists we have. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't apply for, by all means, you should. I just want you to be open to the larger units, the 3, 4, and 6 bedrooms, because those are almost guaranteed that you're going to have space. So it's something to keep in mind and be open. If you really don't want, don't add to application, because you don't want to refuse your offer if we make an offer for a layout you don't want. But be open to that. And again, later on, if what you really want is a 1-bedroom, if you really want is a studio, you can reapply and relocate when the wait list is not as large as it is right now. Next. Again, we can go faster to those layouts because it's just, there for you. And like Grace said, you have access to these slides, this webinar later on, and you can go to our website and look at that as well. So here's just an idea about Nuevo West, and for our communities, our goal when we created those new communities is really to enforce the sense, again, of community, to make sure that people would interact. And later, you're going to see also some amenities that we have, like game rooms and fitness centers. And this is open for everyone, for every community. So no matter where you live, you can have access to all the amenities. It's for everybody. Next. This is Nuevo West is one of our furnished communities. So just give you an idea how the apartment looks like in the inside. Nuevo West is furnished. Nuevo East is not furnished. So this is another thing that you have to weigh in when you make your housing selections. Okay, those are some of the amenities that I mentioned to you. So we have a swimming pool at Mesa Nueva, but if you live at Mesa Nuevo Est, Nuevo East, Mesa, One Miramar, no matter where, you have access to the pool. We have like a game room. We have different fitness centers in the communities. We have like little gathering areas where you can just hang out with your friends, you know, with your neighbors. You can have a barbecue, or you can have like just, you know, sit by the fireplace. Next. This is Nuevo East. So you see this lower building. This is where I am right now. This is our offices, and we have many conference rooms and study rooms. They are also available to all the students. And this big building and across from us is one of the buildings for Nuevo East. So that also gives you an idea about how it looks like. This is Nuevo East. Again, it's unfurnished. So it's just to give an idea about the space. And here is just to give you an idea about the map in our community. So all the communities that I mentioned, except for La Jolla del Sol and Coast, they are in the same area. So if you choose, and if you can click because it's going to highlight each community. Yeah, so you see Nuevo West, this is where it's located. And then to the right is going to be Nuevo East. And then in the very middle here is Mesa Nueva. And then you have on the One Miramar Street and Mesa all together. No, that's fine. Exactly. So they're all together. You can use all the amenities. Everybody can interact. We want to have, you know, everybody together as a community. Okay, now I'm going to pass over to Myra, and she's going to talk more specifics about the wait list, about who is eligible, how the offers are made, and any questions about the wait list. Myra, please take it over. Thank you all.
Thank you, Daniela. Hello, everyone again. I'm gonna go over to the waitlist and how to apply on the waitlist. I'm gonna also answer some of the common questions that we have. And the first question is, who is eligible? As students that they have formally accepted the UC San Diego offer of admissions, and they have submitted their intent to matriculate in courses leading to graduate level. Those students are going to be eligible to submit their application on the wait list. Now, the next questions is, what is the wait time? The wait time depends on your housing preferences selected in your housing application. It ranges from 2 to 6 months, or it can also be as long as 24 months in communities like Coast. Like Daniela was mentioning, this community is close to the ocean, and some of the units, they have ocean view. So it's very popular and demanding for the students. The next question is, why the 2-year term? The 2-year term allows for us to cycle through the waitlist more frequently, giving more grad students the opportunity to live in grad family housing. Next slide. Oh, before I forget, this is our information about our office. So if you need to reach out to us, you can send us an email to gradfamilyhousing@ucsd.edu. You can also give us a phone call, or if you need to talk to us in person, let's say you're here in San Diego, you need to speak to somebody in person. Our office is located in the Exchange Building in Nuevo East. Next slide, please. Okay, the offer process is very easy. You will have to start with the application. That's the first step. On the application, we require general information. We want to know if you're coming as a single student, as a couple, or if you're coming with your family. On the application, you also will have to select 3 housing preferences from all the communities that we show you. And we also need your desired move-in date. That is very important to be as accurate as possible because we make offers based on that date. Now, the offer process, once you complete your housing application and your name comes up on the wait list, you will receive your first offer. If you accept your first offer, we will assign you the space. But if you refuse the first offer, your application will return to the wait list and you will have an opportunity for a second offer. On the second offer, if you accept, we will assign you the space. But if you refuse at this point, your application will be archived. After you accept the offer, we'll send you the rental agreement. The rental agreement will be for 2 years, but if your program is less than 2 years, you can always move out by providing a 30-day notice. After a rental agreement is issued to you, you have 24 hours to sign the rental agreement. Once you sign, roommate information will be given to you if you're a single student. And the last step of the process will be the online orientation. One thing that I forgot to mention, that once an offer is given to you, you have 48 hours to accept or decline the offer. All right, and we will be answering some questions in the Q&A, and I will hand it over to the next person.
Hello again, everyone. We are your off-campus housing department, and thank you to ISPO for inviting our office to share our resources. Just to reiterate, my name is Camille Kenga, pronouns she, her, hers, and I serve as the Basic Needs Housing and Educations Coordinator over at the Hub.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marisa Islas. Sorry, and I hope everyone is having a lovely Tuesday so far. Pronouns she, her, hers.
Today, we'll be reviewing some general housing information and resources that are available to the entirety of our campus community. And we wish to honor the specific and additional barriers to access that international students typically have to navigate through. Thus, we will lean on our partners over at Hubs following our share outs to give more intentional information. Next slide, please.
So what is the Off-Campus Housing Office? The Off-Campus Housing Office offers resources to aid students in their transition to off-campus living. A resource some of y'all may already be familiar with is the Off-Campus Housing website. Here you can access property listings, upload your own property listings, do a roommate search, seek platform recommendations, read up on first-time renting tips, lease overviews, emergency resources, and more. Once you enter offcampushousing.ucsd.edu into your search bar, you will see a layout similar to this one. The Off-Campus Housing website is solely for UCSD affiliates, and you can log in with your UCSD user ID or PID if you are a UCSD student, faculty, or staff. If you are a property lister or someone without a user ID or PID, you will see an option on the right to log in as a guest. These login credential requirements assist in creating a safer platform. And when searching for housing, you can adjust your preferences by location, how much you are looking to spend, if you want a house or apartment, and other specific requests. You can also find resources on how to review rental agreements and how to understand one's responsibilities as a tenant, both being fundamental parts of the housing search. Additionally, the roommate search tool on the off-campus housing website provides students with the opportunity to search for potential roommates that also attend UCSD. Through this feature, students also have the option to create their own roommate profiles that include important information relating to their preferences and roommate characteristics. Next slide, please.
ISPO also hosts their own housing-related resource information on their website at istudents.ucsd.edu. On this page, you can find information for both on and off-campus living, as well as a comprehensive breakdown of common housing terms, avoiding scams, additional cost of living information, questions to ask a landlord or property manager, and more. Next slide, please.
And to add, there are 3 additional housing resources that I highly recommend. First is the AS Housing Guide, which serves as an amazing off-campus housing guide for students that would like a visual breakdown of what a housing search should look like. The Summer 2021 Off-Campus Housing Webinar is another great resource to use as a supplemental guide for off-campus living. This webinar includes presentations from the Hub Basic Needs Center and Off-Campus Housing Office, Office of Ombuds, Student Legal Services, Transportation Services, Associated Students, and Student Life. And lastly, Student Legal Services allows students to access information regarding leasing and legal topics, and I encourage anyone that is in need of legal counseling to schedule an appointment through their website. Next slide, please. And moving on to non-UCSD affiliated public search platforms, PadMapper is a public platform we like to recommend along with Spare Room. PadMapper is a property search website and Spare Room is a roommate search website. The UCSD unofficial Facebook housing group is a community resource students also use to find roommates and housing. Additionally, there are transitional housing options such as hostels, Airbnb rentals, and verbal rentals. And you can also search for Corporate Housing San Diego to find other transitional housing options geared towards traveling professionals. These apartments are short-term and often furnished. Next slide, please.
Diving into some housing search tips that have been curated by the typical concerns we often hear from students. So when to begin? In general, the answer is going to be it depends. It depends on what type of lease you are looking for and when you are looking to sign the lease. However, when centering the trends in the housing market, if you are looking for a summer lease, the time is between now and May. If you are looking for a fall lease, the time varies, but we suggest to begin looking no later than June. And since San Diego has a large college student community, you may also want to consider if properties are willing to hold a listing with a quote unquote holding fee until you are ready to move in. Next, you want to start by building your list of needs versus wants and truly understanding what are your non-negotiables when it comes to a listing. This list should include your budget, preferred locations, transit options, meaning how are you going to get to campus, potential roommates, and amenities. We also want to note that you should be strategic in regards to your affordability. So consider a month-to-month lease if your financials are a bit less stable versus a full year commitment. Additionally, a few tips when navigating your search include to request a virtual and or in-person tour of the property. Be sure to not sign the lease or pay any deposits until you have been able to physically check out the property. You never know what you are seeing in photos or virtually is truly what the property has to offer you. And of course, ensure that the property aligns with your wants and needs. With the housing crisis, it is easy to want to quickly find housing to ensure stability. However, there is so much value in ensuring that your holistic experience of living off campus is one that will help you at your time at UC San Diego. Next slide, please.
Thank you. As y'all may expect, commuting comes with its own unique challenges. When I was an undergrad, I commuted for my first year, and what really helped me out was looking for any resources available. If y'all are on Facebook, there is a commuters group that allows students to connect with other fellow commuters, and there's also a commuter resources page on Trident Link with a list of helpful links. You can also find resources for commuters on the off-campus housing website, such as information on the campus shuttles, parking, affordable grocery stores, transit-efficient housing, and more. Next slide, please. And lastly, consider plenty of options and be wary of scams. If it seems too good to be true, it most likely is. Familiarize yourself with your rights and responsibilities as a tenant. Again, if you need legal counseling, reach out to Student Legal Services and please visit ISPO's isafety.ucsd.edu webpage for more information.
Thank you, Marissa. We will now pass it on to our partners over at Hugs to shine light onto the housing search within the international student experience.
All right. Thank you so much. Just before I begin, I would like to give a shout out to like ISPO and like Basic Needs. Both these departments have been really helpful in like what we do here at Hugs. And I'm excited to help our graduate students. So really briefly, what is Hugs? Hugs is housing for undergraduate and graduate students. And if you guys need any housing for international students, even domestic as well, my contact is at the bottom right, which is around here. It's housing at hugsintl.com. So what we specialize in is that we specialize in basically securing like fully furnished like rental properties, including like utilities, Wi-Fi, and furnishing, specifically for like international students. And international students are able to like secure housing with us without the need for social security or credit score. Just an example of places properties that we have. There are multiple in La Jolla, Mission Valley, and also down closer towards SDSU. But all of our properties have been vetted by me personally and are also accessible to school. So now I would like to transition over to like, what is the housing search like as a UCSD student myself? So next slide, please. All right. So in terms of like UCSD, like housing search, most of us usually go through a few channels. And the main channels are the one, which is the biggest channel, is the Facebook group itself. So if you notice, the first one is the UCSD unofficial off-campus housing group. The second one is another like a non-affiliated like UCSD housing group. And the last one is my personal housing group for Hugs. So usually all these three groups are where most students, after they come out of like campus housing, that's where they usually find housing. But there are a few best practices that you guys might want to keep note of when going through these groups. The first one, like what Cameo said, is never ever make payment before viewing the inside of the property, because right now we're actually in a mix, in a very weird mix of like low supply, which means that there used to be a housing crisis, so housing supply is still in a little bit short, and there's also an influx of scammers. So I want all of you students to just keep that in mind and be a little bit more aware and a little bit more. Don't be too trusting of like what people say sometimes. Other thing is that other best practices are, let's say when someone reaches out to you, always make sure to check their Facebook account, look at what is how old their account is, what other groups have they been. If they've been part of like different like groups, housing groups, for example, like even ones at USC, UCLA, and they're spamming, that's also another red flag that you guys might want to keep note of. But the great thing about at least the Facebook group is that it's much easier to find housing. Why? Because there's a mix of different housing. So let's say if you guys are unable to find like a full unit by yourself, one of the easiest way to find housing is to actually like rent out a room that's already been secured by existing UCSD alum or UCSD students. So that's one of the ways which I find is the easiest way to get a housing. When let's say there's a 3-bedroom and there's already 2 UCSD students inside, the last one's moving out, they're looking for lease takeover. Those are the kind of situations where it'll be much more flexible for you as a graduate or international student, and you're able to negotiate out like, oh, let's say even certain cases where if the tenants feel comfortable with you, you might be able to move in earlier, like more flexible lease terms compared to what you would get at, let's say, graduate housing where you're locked into longer leases. So Facebook is kind of more, it's kind of a bit the Wild West. You do get good properties, but likewise, there's a lot of scammers as well. The great thing is that you will get a lot of support from UCSD community. You'll always look at the comments where people will call out scams as well. People will review certain properties and reach out to other students inside those groups just to get access to housing as well. So other main methods used by like UCSD students that I've seen, if you do have like let's say a social security or credit score, I mean, apartments.com, they do have their online platform where you can pay rent and directly reserve housing and all of that. Zillow is a bit more, Zillow is where you kind of just contact the landlord, submit the application, and they get back to you. So Zillow is also another good opportunity, but they kind of service more like entire units, and there's a bit more competition for Zillow. And the last two methods are it's Craigslist and hotels, hostels, Airbnb. So Craigslist, also a huge risk of scammers, but there are also legit properties over there. But however, I would not really recommend Craigslist because nothing on Craigslist is really verified. So that's somewhat where I would feel as the last option. Or if you do find a property and they agree to like, yes, in-person tour, virtual, they show you photos, there's no issues, then that would be a safe bet. But I just want you guys to really be aware of, because I've had a case where an international student paid 2,500 and she signed the lease and the person just disappeared. So I want you guys to be extremely careful whenever you're talking about like getting a whole unit and thinking about in terms when they ask for advance payment as well. So could I get the next slide, please? All right. And I've also taken the time for all you like first-time renters to actually point out a list of apartment complexes, because I do live in La Jolla right now, and I'm pretty familiar with which apartment complexes are close to school, has access to public transportation, and the process as well. So if you guys look over there, the little list I have, these are just some of the examples of like the most popular apartment complexes with students. And how it usually works out is that you guys can just go, what I like to do is that, and how I secure my own place, even as an international, is that I went down to the property like a month, 2 months earlier, and I just submitted an application. So what happens is that in terms of the application process, I think for locals, domestic students is not really an issue, but let's assume that you're an international, right? So as an international student, a few things you need to keep track of is that they usually ask for like 1-year leases. They are usually unfurnished without utilities, which means that when you guys move into these apartment complexes, you'll need to like call up SDG&E, set up your Wi-Fi in order to like get everything running at your apartment. It also requires renter's insurance, which you guys will definitely have to think about. 2 to 3 times usually proof of income, or you have a co-signer signing for that. And this is where I actually go deeper a bit into the international student segment of like applying. So if you're an international student and you don't have a social security or credit score, obviously like my company, we solve the issue by assigning your credit score and finding housing. But let's say you attempt to go for these apartment complexes. So what I feel usually works, and I've done it before at like multiple apartment complexes, is even though I don't have the credit score or social security, what I do is that I show a bank account with, let's say, my my sponsor, like my family, and then I show another letter where it's a proof of relationship. So what I usually show is like I have enough money for the whole length of the lease, and with that letter of sponsorship, usually what happens is that the office is more willing to come to the table and negotiate. Well, some offices may still push for like double deposits, or like they may still try to put like terms on you. The best we can do as internationals is like making sure that all our documents are in place, and usually the bigger your cash pile is, the more they feel reassured. So what I like to usually do is like, as long as your rent, you have bank accounts covering like even the whole stay of the rent, or if you have like, you can cover a certain few months with a pay stub or like a proof of payment, that usually is enough for most of the apartment complexes in La Jolla, specifically the ones I've talked to about here, because they're used to renting to international students. The further you go out, or let's say if you go to La Jolla Shores, like more like upscale areas, that's where their vetting criteria gets a bit more strict. And I've seen certain situations where they're really strict on like 3x, like the income. Even if you have a bank statement with the whole sum of money, they still ask for certain stuff like that. So that's stuff that you guys might want to be aware of. And also like just building upon like what the others have said earlier, you do need to, there are application fees, and there's also where if you do get your application does get accepted or you're in the process, you can place down a deposit in order to secure that housing. So that's kind of like the main methods. Obviously, there are a lot of methods like hotels, Airbnbs, but just to recap, the biggest is Facebook. There's like 48,000 people on one of the groups, 8,000 on another. Mine has like a few hundred. So that's like 50,000 like students and landlords all over in the big Facebook groups. Apartment complexes are next, where the ones located specifically in La Jolla and they're familiar with our UCSD students. And the last ones are like, yeah, Craigslist, Airbnb, and apartments.com, and all your other assorted services. So that kind of just brings me to the end of like my specific segment on the student perspective of finding housing. Love to pass it over to the next slide and the next panelist as well.
Thank you, Russell. So CORT Furniture actually supplies furniture rental to students. We make ordering furniture online as easy as ordering something off of Amazon or Uber Eats. Why do people typically rent furniture? Well, as the presentation went today, a lot of apartments, when you move to the United States, are unfurnished. So renting furniture is extremely flexible. We basically have multiple packages and multiple lease lengths. So if somebody was going to come into the United States for short term, we can do a 3-month rental. Most students typically rent furniture for 10 to 12 months. What's so nice about renting furniture is we deliver the furniture, we set it up, and when you no longer need it, we'll pick up the furniture. So you're not obviously leaving boxes behind, or no furniture will end up in the landfill. And students typically love our furniture because when you leave, possibly for summer or go back to your country, you don't have to worry about storing it or transporting it anywhere. As I mentioned, we have multiple packages for all different size apartments, starting from a studio to a full home, and we have a lot of flexibility. We have our QR code on the flyer and our website for students that will take you directly to that. You can also find us at cort.com/students. So thank you so much, and we'll look forward to assisting you.
All right, so that kind of encapsulates the majority of our presentation today. We're about to get to our open question and answer session, but I have a few important deadlines and reminders for you all. So 2 things that you can start doing now. One is begin requesting your immigration documents. So your I-20 or your Form DS 2019, and you can do so via iportal.ucsd.edu. And then like our folks in graduate and family housing, you can also, if you have accepted your offer of admission to UC San Diego, you can start applying for on-campus housing. And again, that this is something that many of our students are interested in, living on campus. So you can start to do that as well. And then coming up next, so we do have other pre-arrival webinars. So next week, we're going to be talking about getting a teaching assistantship, often referred to as TA, as well as like English or TOEFL requirements for those. And then the week after, we'll talk a little bit about graduate student funding. Or the month after, excuse me. Again, you can register for those via iwebinars.ucsd.edu by clicking on webinars for newly admitted students. And then come September, we are so excited to welcome you all with new international student orientation. And if you want to find out more about that, iorientation.ucsd.edu. Again, this is a little bit about some of our upcoming pre-arrival webinars. We'll also talk about CVIS transfers on May 10th. So if you're currently in the US as an international student and you need to transfer your CVIS record from another institution to UC San Diego, then I recommend joining us on May 10th. On May 12th, we'll talk about student life and getting involved on campus as an international graduate student. And on May 17th, we'll talk a little bit about campus safety. So all of our webinars are recorded and posted. We do ask for like 10 to 15 business days. That just allows our team to edit the webinar and upload it and post it. But I do believe that if you go to our website right now, I think we have 2 previous webinars already posted on our website, so you can access those recordings. And then you can also, the second section of the website is where you can register for some upcoming webinars. All right, so we have made it to our end of the presentation, which is now we'll transition to our open question and answer. Just a friendly reminder, if we don't get to any questions, to some of your questions today, you can always reach out to us at icontact.ucsd.edu. And I'll go ahead and also invite our co-presenters today, if you would like to put some contact information of how students can access your department or your office, feel free to share that in the chat as well. And then we are going to go ahead and get started with some of our questions. I can see that many of our questions have been answered, so a huge thank you to our partners who have been typing in answers during our presentation today. And our first question will go to Shauna. And Shauna, this question reads, how can one know the status of admission provisionally or permanently?
Yes, so when I was showing what the applicant portal looks like, that portal, when you go to gradapply.ucsd.edu, that will show you the status of your application. So that's how you will know if your status is provisional or if the term that we actually use is when it's final admission. So you would be able to see it both in the status, and you also can see the pending admissions documents. So if no documents are pending, that's another clue that your status is no longer provisional and that it is now final. And if it's okay with you, Grace, I'll just also address, there are a few questions about the timing of submitting pending documents. We really recommend submitting those documents as soon as you are able. So if you are currently finishing up a degree and that degree is going to be, you're going to complete it in the spring or the summer, sometime before you attend UC San Diego, then finish up whatever courses you have. And then once you get that final transcript or that final degree conferral, then just go ahead and send it to us. If you already have completed all previous education prior to coming to UC San Diego, we recommend submitting those documents now. And really just in general, doing it as soon as you can is preferred. Somebody asked if they could submit documentation when they arrive in September. That's okay, but just again, as soon as you are able to is the answer.
Awesome, thank you. I do see a question in here talking about currently on a F1 visa and on OPT and wondering how to transfer their CVIS record to UC San Diego. So if you go to our website, we actually have an Ask Triton feature, which functions kind of as a search bar, and you can type in CVIS transfer, and that's going to talk to you about how to transfer. So that's what you're doing in terms of if you're currently on an F1 record and on OPT, you want to transfer your CVIS record to UC San Diego, to your new institution. So again, you can type in CVIS transfer in our website, and that will kind of direct you to a page that leads you through a checklist. But our webinar on May 10th also talks about CVIS transfers. So I would recommend you check that out as well. But yes, that's referred to as transferring your CVIS record or a CVIS transfer, and that's going to be applicable to you. All right, our next question is probably for our HDH colleagues. And this question asks, which living community is Rady closest to?
Well, all our communities are in the same area, and it's considered, everybody calls East Campus. It's kind of off campus, but just one thing I didn't share that is important for you to know. There are shuttles, during the academic year. It's, with COVID, the times have changed, but it should be every 15 minutes or every 30 minutes. You should have a shuttle that takes you from where the communities are located to campus. And we also have a pedestrian bridge that is going to put you right there on campus, and you can, it was a pedestrian bridge. You can walk, but you also can bike there. So all the communities, we are very close. We are off campus, but we are a walking distance to campus.
Great, thank you. Our next question asks, is there a procedure for adding a roommate, so for double occupancy, after a single occupancy room is assigned? And if so, what is the procedure for that?
Yes, it varies, depends on the community. If you're going to Mesa or 1 Miramar Street, we're gonna assign you a double occupant. So let's say you take the room by yourself as a double occupant, you're gonna pay your half rent for the bedroom, and it's our responsibility to find you a roommate. But for the other communities, it's different. The double occupant is gonna come in as your additional occupant. So that means you're gonna have the room for yourself. You're gonna pay for the room by yourself. You're gonna be the only one charged. And then it's your responsibility to find your double occupant. And you and the double occupant are gonna make arrangements how he or she is gonna pay you the rent. It's not, university doesn't get involved with that. The contract is only in your name. We give you the chance to have a double occupant, but it's up to you to find that person.
All right. So our next question reads, is it possible to change roommates or rooms during the quarter?
Yes, it is possible, but it's not as simple. You have to reapply for housing, and then you go through the wait list. So it's the same waiting time than anyone else who would be applying. Of course, there are situations, rare, but sometimes happen that is really, it's not a good situation with a roommate. It's definitely not getting along. We have people in the office that's what they do, is they're the housing court, the resident relations coordinators. So they have the means, and the resources to sit down with you, with your roommate, and try to fix whatever the issue may be. And in rare occasions, we feel like they need like an emergency move, we could skip the wait list and accommodate, but that's not what it should be expected.
All right, so this next question doesn't specify for on-campus or off-campus, so we might have both folks speak to this question. So the question reads, my course begins on August 1st, and I will be coming to the US in July. My question is, will I be able to move in a month prior to my course start date, and will I have to pay rent for the entire month of July? So maybe let's start with our on-campus folks, if this applies to an on-campus situation, and then maybe our off-campus folks can speak to that.
Yes, for students starting in the fall, the earliest you can move in is like June. And yes, you start paying rent, regardless if you're physically here or not, you start paying rent the day your rental agreement starts.
So similarly for off-campus, kind of mentioning that quote unquote holding fee that we mentioned earlier, typically some landlords use your security deposit as a holding fee. So in short, yes, you would still have to pay rent for that duration of the month. But honestly, in this San Diego housing market, it's better safe than sorry.
Yes, and another thing it asks about, like if you move in like in the middle of the month, mid-July, you just pay the prorated rent for those days that you're going to be here in July. It's not for the full month.
Wonderful. Okay, so our next question reads, are there any on-campus jobs available at Housing, Dining, and Hospitality, HDH?
Not really. I mean, there are like, sometimes there are opportunities as community assistants, which would be like the RAs and the undergrad side. We have the CAs and the grad side. It doesn't come up very often though, but yes, there is the possibility, but not something that you should count on.
All right, our next question is it okay if I've already filled out the waitlist form for on-campus housing?
Yes, it's okay. If you are admitted, you can have a housing waitlist application.
Wonderful. All right. So our next question reads, are there amenities on campus available to reserve for group study or social events?
Within our communities, yes. plenty.
And are there any charges for that?
Some of them have no charges. The ones under GFH, they have no charges. You have access to it. You just have to reserve. But there's a part of the Nuevo Exchange building is through conferences. So those spaces would have charges.
All right. Okay. Our next question is, are there any rules for having like plants or pots in apartments which have a balcony or patio?
No, you can have in your balcony and patio. You just have, of course, to be careful, you have to have like a little plate underneath because you don't want the water to go to the apartment downstairs or something. And nothing can be like hanging on the rails, you know, have to be on the ground and with like a pot, a plate to hold the water.
Our next question says, on the portal, I have to add the PID of my roommate for a double occupancy. Is it possible to skip that if I don't have a preferred roommate?
You don't have to add the PID for double occupancy. Again, if you're applying for Mason 1 Miramar, we are going to be assigning the PID. We're going to be assigning the roommate. And if it's for the other communities, it really doesn't matter because you're just going to do that after you sign your agreement. After you have your agreement, you have your bedroom, that's when you're going to add your roommate. What you might be talking about, because there's an option in the portal, if you have a preferred roommate. So if you know someone, you have a friend that you'd like to live with, not necessarily in your bedroom, not like a roommate, but an apartment mate, then you have the option to enter. So if you have a friend, then yes, we want to know the PID. If you want us to assign you an apartment mate, then it's good. You don't have to enter anything. It's not mandatory field.
All right, our next question reads, I'm an incoming graduate student and my classes are going to be held at UCSD Extension and University City Center. So which type of housing would be preferable, on campus or off campus? And I can go ahead and do an initial answer for this. So I think that's kind of up to your preference. So one resource that I might recommend was even just utilizing potentially like maps, like Google Maps or another map feature, and just kind of seeing like where, so University City Center, you can put that in and kind of see that's where my classes are going to be. You can type in like Mesa Nueva and kind of understand what's the distance between those locations versus other common off-campus housing locations. But again, it's going to be up to you in terms of like transit, like many of our partners, of how do I want to get to my classes? Do I want to use public transit? Do I have a car? Things like that. So I think utilizing those map features and just trying to understand what are your priorities and what are your wants versus needs might help you with some of those decisions. Oh, wonderful. Cameo, do you want to speak to a little bit the link you just put in the chat?
Yes, of course. So beautiful answer, Grace. It really depends on your preference and kind of remember the holistic experience of how you want to navigate through your time at UC San Diego. So we have our transit efficient housing project because we recognize that some students aren't going to live on campus. Some students are going to live further away in different counties and communities in the San Diego area. So Basic Needs has built our transit efficient housing projects, which lists both of our like transit service lines as well as trolley routes. And we've indicated specific communities that have apartments and residencies around those kind of bus stops and transit stops to get a better understanding of where you might land if you do choose to live off campus.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, our next question is asking about dining services. So can you please provide additional information regarding dining services, if any? So is there an ability to subscribe for daily meals at a cafeteria or on a monthly or yearly basis?
I have no information about dining.
My understanding is that typically, so dining plans often come with for our undergraduate students, but I don't know. I think our graduate students aren't mandated to have a dining plan. And so I think that they can choose, like they can pay to have a dining plan if they want to, so that they can eat at the dining halls on campus, but it's really up to them. So that's my understanding, but.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Okay, great. Oh, wonderful. All right, so our next question reads, are there any internal support communities according to demographics or other criteria, like Indian student groups, Asian student groups, queer support groups? So this is a great question, and I think that we can kind of speak to this from a couple different angles. So one thing, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in our student life webinar, but I'll put some links in the chat. So there's studentorg.ucsd.edu. So there's different student organizations that might connect you with different, I know that there's like Indian Student Association, there is Chinese Union, there's Japanese Student Association. Another thing to check out is our resource centers. So we have the LGBTQ Resource Center that might be able to connect you with some queer support groups. But then I know that we also have living learning communities. I'm not too familiar with living learning communities at the graduate level, so I'll hand it over to our HDH colleagues to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, we have here at Nuevo East, we have one of the wings is for one of the LLCs is for the Black graduate living and learning experience. And we have, I don't know, I think about like 20 students by now who leave and go through this LLC. We're not like directly involved with the LLC per se, but I know they have like special events, and they all live in the same place. They have share the same interests. There are a lot of discussions, and someone asked before in the FAQs how the housing is, if housing is like accept the queer community. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that we are very, very inclusive here. The environment in housing, it's great. I want everyone to feel welcome. It's a very diverse community. You know, we have people from all backgrounds, from all over the world, and everybody's equally welcome here. And I truly want you to believe that, because this is how it is. And we have like support, no matter, you know, what it is, where you're coming from, you're always going to have support. We might not have specific groups here, but we have the resources to guide you through here. Everybody's very welcome here at UCSD. Trust us when I say that. I mean it.
All right, so our next question reads, if I've asked for on-campus housing for, let's say, the 15th of September, but because of the long wait list, I don't get on-campus housing by then, is it possible to get on-campus housing after September 15th?
Yes.
Or am I off the wait list once my move-in date passes?
No, we make offers throughout the entire year, because, you know, we have people have like 2 year. And another thing that is important, the 2-year term is a max, is not minimum. So you're not going to be forced to stay here for 2 years. If you want to move out prior to the end of the 2 years, you just have to give your community a 30-day notice of intent to vacate. So what that means that we have people moving out like non-stop throughout the year. So we're always going to have offers. And that's why I also suggest, you know, people who really want just 1-bedroom apartment or just 1 studios to be open to the larger units, reapply and wait to be relocated when the wait list is not longer, because we make offers all the time, every month. We don't stop making offers.
All right, so we have approached the end of our time together today, but many of our campus partners have put their contact information in the chat. So if you have any follow-up questions, especially if you would like to ask really like case-specific questions that apply to your specific scenario, we encourage you to reach out to our partners. We are here to support you, and we're here to help ease your transition to UC San Diego. So please do feel free to reach out to us. But we thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We hope you have a great rest of your day, again, whether that be morning, afternoon, or evening. And we look forward to engaging with you at our next webinar. But with that, have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week.